This starfish, with its exotic appearance and rays as blue as the ocean, is called Lynchia liata. It tempts many aquarium lovers to buy it. However, the survival rate of this Indo-Pacific region, starfish in captivity, is tragically low. From this, you might conclude that this beauty is extremely fragile. In some ways, it is. But in other ways, it is one of the most resilient creatures on Earth. Because from just one of its remaining rays, a new Lynchia liata can grow. And this is not the most extraordinary case of life triumphing over death. Some animals can survive without vital organs, in boiling water, and in a complete vacuum. Who are these heroes that defy the physical laws of the universe? Animals that can live after death? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to watch even more exciting episodes. Decapitation is immediately fatal to a person. Can it be any different for anyone else? Well, yes. For superhumans, cyborgs, actually for ordinary cockroaches, it's all about the structure and function of the internal organs. In humans, our tissues are oxygenated by a high-pressure circulatory system. If you cut the core arteries in the neck, you'll bleed out in minutes. Even if the cuts are immediately clamped, the body will not survive without nerve signals from the brain, ordering the rest of the organs to breathe and function. When the head is severed, the brain's connection to the rest of the body is severed. The human respiratory apparatus is largely located in the head. There, our nose and mouth are the places where air enters our body. From there, the air enters the trachea and lungs, where the blood is saturated with oxygen. It carries oxygen to all the organs and tissues of the body, and in turn, gets rid of the carbon dioxide produced by metabolic processes. In other words, if there is severe blood loss and blood pressure drops, oxygen will not be delivered to all parts of the body, resulting in death. But cockroaches, like most insects, do things differently. They breathe through a network of tubes connected to openings called spiracles, located on the body surface. In other words, oxygen is not transported through the circulatory system. Their brains mainly process sensory information from their eyes and antennae. But many other actions, such as running and responding to touch, are processed by nerve clusters called ganglia in each body segment. Ganglia are clusters of nerve tissue capable of performing basic functions responsible for reactions. Cockroaches can do many things without a brain, using only these ganglia. So what happens when a cockroach is decapitated? Actually, a pretty amazing thing. Its head can continue to live its own life for several hours, waving its antennae and reacting to light and other stimuli. It will also lose only a few drops of hemolymph, which replaces blood, and the wound will quickly close with something like a blood clot. The scientific study of the headless cockroach was conducted by neuroscientist George Horace back in 1962. In the experiment, headless cockroaches were held over a saline solution that shocked one of their legs with an electric current. Over time, the insects learned to keep their paws elevated to avoid electrocution. In another study that measured the heart rate of cockroaches that had not been decapitated, scientists could hardly hold the subjects as they tried to run away. But without heads, the cockroaches proved to be slow-moving and perfectly docile objects that didn't wriggle or run anywhere. A decapitated cockroach would eventually die of hunger and thirst, but that could happen in a few weeks. Yes, cockroaches are one of the most resilient species on Earth, but they aren't capable of causing after-death damage like our next heroes. Yes, you heard right. Frogs are amazing animals. Despite their frail appearance, they have countless strategies for coping with the harshest climates. They can be found above the Arctic Circle, in deserts, humid rainforests, and more. Some of their strategies for survival in extreme conditions are simply ingenious. For example, hibernation and estivation, winter and summer hibernation respectively. Hibernation is a typical response to a cold winter in temperate climates. Once the amphibian finds a suitable location protected from winter weather and predators, its metabolism slows down tremendously. With the onset of spring, it wakes up and begins to feed and reproduce. Aquatic frogs, such as the leopard frog and American bullfrog, usually overwinter underwater. Terrestrial frogs tend to overwinter on land. American toads and other frogs that dig well burrow deep into the soil below the freezing line. Some other frogs, such as the wood frog, instead seek out deep cracks in logs or rocks, or burrow deeply into leaves. These places are not as well protected from cold weather and can freeze with their inhabitants. Yet the frogs do not die. Why? They have real antifreeze in them. The high concentration of glucose in the frog's vital organs prevents freezing and the formation of ice crystals, which are destructive to the body's soft tissues. The blood also begins to produce a mixture of glucose and glycogen as the temperature drops. This mixture is absorbed into the cells. It keeps each of them elastic and prevents ice crystals from forming. So what happens to a partially frozen amphibian? It will stop breathing and its heart will stop beating. The frog will look completely dead, but when the temperature rises above freezing, the frozen parts of the frog will thaw, and its heart and lungs will start working again. A frog can go through several cycles of this hardening and thawing. And summer hibernation is a response to the prolonged dry season in some tropical regions. The most famous estivating frogs are the ornate horned frog from South America and the African bullfrog. When the dry season begins, they burrow into the soil and hibernate for several months. But before that, they do a clever trick. They shed several layers of skin, forming a virtually waterproof cocoon that envelops the entire body, leaving only the nostrils open to breathe. The frogs remain in this form throughout the dry season. When the rains resume, they break free of their coverings and wade through the wet soil to the surface. The situation is similar for some species of flies. Some species are so resistant to freezing that they can even survive immersion in liquid nitrogen at temperatures of almost 20 degrees on 4 degrees, with no ill effects. Vladimir Kostel from the Czech Academy of Sciences was fascinated by the ability of some insects to survive freezing. He noticed that this process differs between resilient and vulnerable species, so he investigated further. He took fruit flies for his experiment. They live in the comfortable conditions of the Mediterranean or even warmer tropical zones and do not experience temperatures below 10 to 15 degrees, 50 to 59 degrees. At temperatures of 10 degrees, 50 degrees, and below, larval development stops. At 5 degrees, the insect dies of hypothermia in a few hours. At the same time, Kostel and his colleagues noticed that the malt fly Chimoa costata, a relative of Drosophila, is very resistant to frost. Its larvae successfully survived freezing in liquid nitrogen. An important point during the study was that Chimoa costata at lower temperatures accumulates a large amount of the amino acid proline, which has good antifreeze qualities. With this knowledge in mind, scientists have tried to improve the cold tolerance of Drosophila fruticosa. How? Approximately as in humans, with the help of hardening and a special diet. In the food of the experimental subjects, large doses of proline were added and a specific temperature regime was established in the cage with larvae. For part of the day, the temperature there was 11 degrees, 52 degrees, and then it was reduced to 6 degrees, 43 degrees. In this way, scientists raised several generations of Drosophila and placed the larvae in a 5 degrees 23 degrees environment. About half of the water in their bodies turned to ice. Do you think that was the sad end of the experiment? It wasn't. Some individuals survived the thawing. About 15% of the larvae successfully transitioned to the pupal stage, and about 9% grew into normal adults. Amazing, right? Our next heroes are turtles. They don't slow down their development, but they sure know how to stop aging. Many people know that turtles live long, but not everyone knows that they can also live without vital organs for some time. But first things first, turtles have a slow metabolism, which helps their organs to function for a long time and makes a long life possible. They need a small amount of food, and their slow movements use little energy. Also, their brains require small amounts of oxygen, and the brain can function for days, weeks, or possibly longer without oxygen. In the 17th century, Italian physician Francesco Redi conducted an experiment not for the faint of heart. He removed a turtle's brain. The animal lived for another 6 months. Then, Redi removed the turtle's head. To his surprise, it stayed alive for almost a week before dying of infection. Turtles' brains do not require much oxygen, and their metabolism is so slow that they can survive for a long time without it. They continue to breathe in a similar way to the other animals described. Turtles have lungs, but they have a lot of muscle structures that work with their shell. It helps them keep oxygen in their bodies, like a balloon. But the turtle's heart can pump blood at very low pressure, which is why the animal can stay alive for several months without it. Besides, turtles have been known to survive without oxygen for a long time while hibernating. Some turtles can endure several months of hibernation at temperatures just above freezing, and even a lack of oxygen can't kill them. With the onset of warmer weather, the turtles wake up and resume their lives as if nothing had happened. Turtles can also survive for several months without food or water, but at a lower temperature. They can get their food from algae or microorganisms that grow on the skin. Some species are adapted to long hibernations, such as the freshwater turtles of the northern hemisphere. They usually hibernate at the bottom of ponds or in mud. The same goes for box turtles. They bury themselves in mud or leaf litter to survive the cold. Turtles can live for many years. In nature, their life expectancy is between 20 and 80 years. Turtles are also amazing creatures that are almost as indestructible as cockroaches. So, who are the heroes of nature that can survive after death, or at least appear to? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content.